Welcome back to Clarity Chats. I know it's been a while since you guys saw us, but it takes time to research good topics for you. There are tons of channels on YouTube that churn out content every day, but we really take time to bring the topics that really affect the society. Today's topic is about school readiness, and we have our guest, Alpa, all the way from UK. She's an educator, a mom of two, and a reflex integration practitioner. Welcome, Alpa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Most welcome. Alpa, would you like to say something about yourself?
Okay. So my background has been in psychology and mental health. And when I had my children, I sort of developed an interest in working with children when they started school. And since then, I've been involved in working in the school, working with children with challenging needs. And I further developed my interest into how children who experience challenges on a daily basis can be helped so they can reach their full potential in a classroom setting. I trained as a reflex integration practitioner by the Institute of Neurophysiology and Psychology, abbreviated as INPP. And basically the course that I did is working with children, and adults, but my interest is working with children who display a range of challenges in the classroom, where it's getting down to the foundations of where these challenges are coming from, and devising a program for them, a series of exercises based on reflexes. So every baby is born with a set of reflexes.
True.
Start off with involuntary reflexes, and within the first year of their life, those voluntary reflexes should have been integrated, given rise to a secondary set of reflexes. However, that doesn't always go as smoothly for all sorts of reasons. And when those reflexes are not integrated, it gives rise to further difficulties going forward. So some of the challenges that we see in daily life, in the classroom, are as a result of perhaps some reflexes that haven't been fully integrated in the first year of life. So we will assess and devise a program for that child to integrate those reflexes, giving rise for the higher cognitive functioning to take place.
Amazing, Alpa. Thanks for that introduction. So, as you all know, we are at that time of the year where all of our children are going back to school. And I'm sure a lot of parents out there think that their children are weak in studies, they have difficulties, they're not able to manage. So this is the episode that you need to watch. We would be discussing this in length and what the core issues are which lead to such a situation and what should be done to overcome this. So saying that, Alpa, when you gave the introduction, you mentioned certain things about sensory motor skills. Could you please shed some light on how important this is in the long run for the children?
Okay. So going back, when we talk about school readiness, we're talking about how well a child, how well prepared a child is to succeed in formal schooling. And at the moment, it's all about their chronological age. Okay, they've completed their preschool, they're ready for big school now. And the expectation is, as soon as they hit big school, they're going to be able to hold a pencil, a writing instrument, be able to write. They're going to be able to communicate effectively. So there's lots of expectations on that child. And whilst lots of children, the transition is smooth, There are some children. Not every child develops at the same rate, and so we're looking at the chronological age, but we're not really looking at their developmental age. And sometimes when children enter formal schooling, they're not quite ready, developmentally ready for formal school. So teachers may experience that the child is not able to hold their writing instrument, which means if they can't hold their writing instrument, they're not being able to write. That leads to sort of concerns around their handwriting. Their perhaps reading and writing skills are of concern, and this is all down to how well their motor skills have been developed or not. Their fine motor skills, crucial for holding a writing instrument, crucial for writing. Their gross motor skills may not have been fully developed, so they're not able to sit still for a long time.
True.
So these are very common things that children, that teachers report, parents may even observe. But if they haven't if they're not fully ready developmentally, they're all of a sudden put into this situation that's demanding so much of them, and developmentally they're not ready. It's
True.
where it's exceeded their developmental capabilities.
Correct. And this creates stress on them as well.
So that what that creates is frustration, stress, anxiety, and just losing the love for learning, because they feel they can't. And it's not that they're not intelligent. Believe every child is intelligent. Is whether we can provide the right environment for them to flourish and succeed.
I absolutely agree with that. It's about providing the right environment for your child. Like Alpa mentioned, every child is intelligent, but the way they absorb information is different, i.e., the way you give them the information would differ from child to child, or it should differ from child to child. Let me just correct myself. So different children learn in different setups. So I think that's where we need to really elaborate and stress that how can we manage this? Let's say, the school education system is same, and every child goes through the same things, and the teachers use the same methodology for every child in the classroom, but each child learns in a different way. So how can we overcome this challenge?
I think it's a big challenge. Big challenge for teachers. They're under pressure to get the curriculum done by the end of the academic year, and it's having the skills and know-how, but the time to be able to work with children of different abilities in the classroom, and how can they give that one-to-one attention. I think when like I said, they're assessed on the chronological age and put into the appropriate grade. There's no neurodevelopmental test done when they enter schooling that they're not quite ready, this is where they should be. And they've just been put into their grade according to their age. So I think that's a challenge for the teachers, challenge for the school as a whole.
You're right. So you mentioned something key here, neurodevelopmental test. Could you give us some information what this test is all about, how it is done, and where can one take it?
So it could be a simple test, like I think in Czechoslovakia they did a very simple test before children started of whether they can draw a circle clockwise. Can they draw a circle anti-clockwise? Drawing different shapes appropriate to their age, numbers, letters, doing balance test, standing on one leg. All these things are indicators of where that child is developmentally, and that actually doesn't happen in schools. We don't test for those things anymore.
You're right. And even if they do, I think it's just to tick the box and fill some formality forms.
Yeah. In effect, in the end, child still ends up on the grades
Exactly.
according to their age.
Exactly. And let's say this test is done, and a child who is, let's say, ready to go to year 1, for example, or based on his age. But based on this test, we find out that the development has not been as required. So what do you suggest should be done at that point? I mean, this is more for the parents, who think, oh, it's fine, we'll push the child in the school, and the school will obviously accept them, and they will learn and they will grow and they will improve with time. Maybe some children do, but some of them, I think it becomes stress on them and they actually go in the reverse direction rather than actually developing. So what do you suggest should be done or can be done or is done?
Okay, so in the UK, they attend preschool and then it's reception or foundation, depending on the school they go to. They have different names. And what parents can do have the option. Parents don't have to send their children for formal schooling. They can still hold them back. It's not holding them back.
Yeah.
It's just if they're not developmentally ready, maybe they need another extra year of preschool, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes there's an urgency to get them into school, thinking they're going to, if we get them into school, they're going to just pick up and learn really quickly because they're in a formal setting. It doesn't always benefit the child, and I personally feel there's nothing wrong in just postponing that year, just so they can develop the fine motor skills to write, can develop the gross motor skills, can develop skills that enable them to develop social and emotional skills that are needed for effective interaction, being able to regulate their emotions. So if they are not ready, parents shouldn't feel hesitant to hold that child. I don't know, holding back is the right word, but postponing their year at school.
Yeah, I think
the formal schooling.
I mean, I'm sure most of the parents are actually, I mean, even before the child has entered KG, are thinking about the age at which they would go to university.
Yes, yeah.
And like you mentioned, if their neurodevelopment has not taken place in line with the age group that they are, then you need to take some time, because otherwise they struggle in the beginning, they will struggle even at the end.
Yes.
And I think that's what the parents really need to understand.
Yeah, it doesn't get easier. And I think as parents, as educators, our energies are focused on helping the child succeed in that higher learning.
Correct.
And I would describe it as kind of, imagine building a house, starting with the roof and then working your way down to the foundations. That's just not going to work. Right? So, we want solid foundations. So we need to take a bottom-up approach. If the foundations are solid before they enter formal school system, that will make things much easier going forward, especially when they, when they are much older or into their teenage years. There's, the learning is becoming more and more advanced. That's when the difficulties may start to emerge, not just academically, emotionally, the behavioral. And that's because the foundations have never been stabilized, haven't been addressed from the beginning.
Correct. You're right. I'm sure parents, some of you might be experiencing this or felt this from your children. They come back home, they're very upset, they're very angry, but they don't really tell you what the real reason is, maybe in school they're having difficulties in learning and they don't want to express it to the parents, because or even to the teachers, because like you mentioned, they're under pressure to perform as good as the others or their peers in the class.
Yeah.
And they feel, oh, I'm not good, I'm weak. And these are the kind of words which actually make them even more stressed. And in fact, it, I think, deteriorates their overall performance. So I think you're right. There should be different methods of teaching based on the way a particular child can actually grasp information. Yeah. Um,
And it has to be a child-centered approach.
Yeah.
It's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
And at the moment, just because of the way the schooling system is, it's trying. I'm not sure if the school or the teachers have the time to actually devise a program for each child in their class.
Yeah.
Where they can actually reach their full potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Through the different ways of learning.
Yeah. So in this journey, how important is the role of the parent?
I think the parents need to work with the school, the teachers. I think that communication is really important. Establishing a good relationship, because how a child is at school, maybe they're not like that at home. Usually
Correct.
they're not. And I think it's good for a teacher to get a well-rounded view of what this what this child is about. Maybe there's something that works at home that the teacher perhaps could use in school.
Correct.
I think when we talk about academic abilities, it's about taking a holistic view on that child.
Yeah.
It's not just about academia, it's not just about the teacher, it's not just about the school, it's about everyone that's involved in that child's
It's the whole
care.
ecosystem around.
Yeah.
You're right. So I was actually researching before you came over. I was just reading. There's something I saw, neuroplasticity. Could you just shed some light? Maybe you can explain to the viewers in a much better way. Yeah.
Okay. Neuroplasticity is about the brain's ability to change and adapt. Our brain is not a static organ. It's dynamic and it's open to change. So the good news is that if your child is struggling, that there is hope. There is hope in terms of how we can, how their brain can grow, adapt, change through various. So in terms of the INPP method, it's about the exercises. And if we do something long enough, so for us in terms of the INPP exercises, it can change the brain's neural pathways, because the brain and the body are connected. And if they're working together, we're more likely to see results in that child. All of a sudden, you notice the child is able to concentrate better, the child is able to sit still for longer, because the brain has adapted and changed to what the information it's receiving from the body. So neuroplasticity is about the brain's ability to change, adapt, and grow.
Amazing. Now, there has always been difficulties in learning for children. I think if you go and check history, but I think only now people are paying more attention to it, and I would say more and more parents are seeing this in their children. Do you think gadgets have something to do with this trend?
Yeah, I think parents and practitioners are definitely much more aware. There's a lot more out there now than there ever was, in terms of if their child is experiencing challenges. It's just not because they're just badly behaved. It's because there are lots of underlying issues, and gadget, devices, I think, play a big part. It's not the only reason, but I think it plays a big part in the child's development. Starting off with devices, I mean, it's, when the child is on the device, it's a very sedentary activity.
Yeah.
So they don't get movement, there's no physical activity involved. Couple that with, a really bad diet, a junk diet. So they're not eating very well.
Yeah.
If they're, spending long periods of time on their devices, they're not moving, they're not getting any kind of physical exercise that they need. So that's one big problem. The other one is social interaction.
Yeah.
It takes away from that child bonding, establishing relationships with people around them, conversations, not being able to have, they're so engrossed in devices.
Yeah.
Lots of children struggling with communication
True.
because they're not developing the necessary language skills because, again, just on the devices, they don't need to.
Yeah.
So that affects their language development, physical development. Also, some of the other things that I was looking at sort of affecting their sleep patterns. So sometimes, just to unwind, children may have their gadgets before they go to bed. The light that's emitted, the blue light that's emitted from the devices actually tells the brain that it's daylight.
Oh, wow.
So, then they're
I know why I
struggling
wasn't getting sleep last night.
So the brain is now, struggling with it's bedtime, but actually the what the brain is receiving with the information is actually daylight. So the child struggles with sleep, affects the biological clock. But also the other thing is the sensory experiences. So the sensory experiences that are in terms of content that are related and integrated through multi-sensory experiences with images become so limited. So, there's an image on your device of a flower. We know it's a flower, but the physical and the biochemical changes that occur in response to real life experience is so different. So we've got a flower, we can see it's a flower, but that's it.
Yeah.
The real life experience is we've got this flower, it's a rose, this is what it feels like, this is what it smells like. We don't get that. So then that becomes so limited when we've got devices.
Right.
And also it kind of, I feel devices dull our sensory experiences.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, if we've experienced something very unpleasant, we've witnessed violent behaviors as we're walking on the street, that feeling that it creates, if you're actually watching that on a device, there's a buffer.
Yeah.
So you may almost become numb to that kind of violence, because when you experience it firsthand in real life, it can be traumatizing, it can be disturbing.
Sure. Yeah.
On a screen, I think actually it's quite numbing.
Yeah. I think what we're stressing on here is using the devices while the children are at home. I know device usage is encouraged in school, right? But in school, it's being used for the lessons. But it's more about at home. So give them more social interaction with real people rather than social media. Like Alpa mentioned, they could be looking at a flower, but what does it smell like? That cannot be got from the screen. It comes from nature. They got to go out. And I guess you also want to stress on the fact that jumping, hopping, climbing is so important for their development, and that's just being lost these days with all the gadgets around. So, the thing is, as you're part of the society, all these technological developments and all, they come as part and parcel. and if you have to be part of the society, you have to adapt it, right? So how do you reckon that we are also being part of it, but at the same time we are ensuring that it's not abused? So what shall we do with children, who are really addicted to devices?
I think you're right. There's a lot of addicted, and addicted. You know when your child is addicted when you ask for the device back,
Yeah.
and there's an anger outburst,
Correct.
or they become really irritable. That's when you know your child
Yeah.
is actually addicted. So it's an addiction like any other.
Yeah.
I think social media, and the media platform can provide us with a plethora of information at a great speed, and that's great. I think it's now training that child. I think it's disciplining in terms of
Yeah.
how much, for how long can they use a device for. And it's not something, if your child is used to having the device as soon as they get home from school every day, it's not a case of just pulling that away from them.
Yeah.
It's, I would say, systematically taking it away, so reducing time each day. I think as parents, we probably don't realize it, but I say, we're an example. So if we're, as parents, spending lots of time on our devices, and the children are seeing that make it okay for them.
You're right, yeah.
And we're not aware of our own behavior. So it's
True.
Perhaps as parents being aware of our own behavior and how much time we're spending on the screen. I think that would be a good start. So
it's all about lead by example, isn't it? Yeah. So now that we have discussed in length the issues and the difficulties faced in this matter, which is school readiness, it's the parent, the child, and the teacher themselves. Let's hear from Alpa. How can we overcome this, and what can be done to improve the situation?
Okay, I think it starts with, from a schooling perspective, investing in the teachers, for schools to have an awareness about the different diverse needs in the classroom, investing training in teachers about how to deal with children in the classroom that have diverse needs. I think if teachers are trained and better equipped, they will be in a better position to be able to support the child in reaching their full potential.
Yeah.
I think it's not about whether the child is suitable for the school.
Yeah.
It's more about how can is the school suitable for the child? What can the school do to support that child to reach their full potential?
True.
Are they well equipped in terms of their resources? Are the teachers well trained in identifying and addressing children with different needs in the classroom?
Yeah.
So I think training is key.
I think that's very crucial, yeah.
And I think it should be part of their training as a teacher. So in the UK, we have a PGCE for primary, but any teacher training, I think that should be a big part of their training.
Yeah.
It's recognizing those diverse needs and how to deal with them.
Yeah. And I guess this should be something on a continuous basis, because with the technological development and the advancement of the society, there's so many new issues that come up every now and then that the scientists and researchers are finding out about brain development and children, that I think these trainings need to be updated with time as well. And so should the teachers be. Yeah. I think that's a very good point. And how do you create or I would say, how do you encourage the children who have difficulties in learning? how do we actually boost their morale, say?
I think if learning is made fun, they're not made to feel like they're different. So, and this is where, you know, the educators come in actually devising that child-centered program that every child learns in a different way. Just because a child has poor handwriting, that doesn't mean to say they're not going to be able to write.
True.
It just means their fine motor skills haven't been developed. So let's go back to that. And this is where the teacher training comes in.
Yeah.
Don't make that child feel that they're not capable. It's just the demands of the environment in the school is just it's exceeding what they're capable of. So let's go back to what can they do. If they're struggling with something, what is it we need to focus on so they can, you know, build strength in that, in their fine motor skills, in the gross motor skills. So again, I think the training, again, it comes so teachers can identify rather than just looking at what they can see then and there. It's what's causing that, what's the underlying difficulty.
Exactly, you're right.
And I think, you know, we want to create an environment where children have a love for learning. And if children are experiencing these challenges and are made to feel different, they're not going to want to come to school.
True.
You know, they're not going to want to, and they may, and as a result, there may be behavioral issues that,
Correct.
they may start, that might start coming out in class. They're not a badly behaved child. It's because their needs are not being met. No one seems to understand what is it they actually need, why they can't sit still, why can't they sit still. So again, it's going back to looking at the underlying problems.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I think now if I flip to the role of the parent in this, I think it's very important for the parent to come down to the level of the child and talk to them to understand, like you mentioned, the underlying factors.
Yeah.
And probably if the teachers are not able to do it, the parents themselves can go and discuss with the teachers, you know, what issues the child is having and how best they can learn a certain subject, for example. So other than that, how else do you think parents can actually help in improving the situation?
Okay, so one is making sure that you've established a good relationship between the parent and the school, the teacher, and that you're working together. Because the child might be different in school, they might be different at home. They might play up in one setting and not the other. So it's really important that, you know, is there a trigger that's leading to their behavior? So I think that communication between the parent and the school is really important. I think for parents, making that child feel that they are the center of their universe, that they are loved, they are cared for. It might sound very obvious. Of course we do that, but do we? Sometimes, you know, we can all fall foul in our busy lives, you know, but there's small things, you know, yes, we can ask about how their day went, but, you know, where there's an opportunity, and again, you know, parents are working parents, busy parents, but when the opportunity arises, to dropping them to school, to collecting them, you know, and collecting them from school. Children don't always express that they want their parent to be there, but when they get disappointed, it comes out in their behavior.
True.
Showing an interest in their child's learning, you know, praising them. Some of the things that outwardly seem quite obvious, we sometimes
just
overlook.
Exactly. We just take them for granted.
That actually they know, you know, they know that I love them.
That's true.
And it's not always about material things. It's about just being present physically and mentally. Physically, you might be present, but if you're on your devices and you're busy, I'm listening to you, but I've got things to do. Let me just finish. That's not being present in the moment.
I agree. Let me ask you guys there, how many of you have said, I love you to your child? I think that makes a big difference in their lives.
Yeah.
If you consistently say it, like you mentioned, we just think some things are understood and we take it for granted. The child knows. But I think mentioning it it actually makes a big difference.
It does. And there's different ways of expressing it.
Yeah.
You know, telling them.
Yeah.
Sometimes in my children's lunchbox, I'll put a note in there.
Nice.
You know, to say how much I love them. Have a really fun day. You're so special.
Wow.
And you know, these things make their day. If they're having a really bad day at school, it's going to be uplifting, and they know that somebody there loves them, cares, and they need to know. And don't make the assumption that they know. It needs to be expressed, and it can be expressed in so many different ways, by telling them, by writing to them.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. Yeah, guys, we need to express to our children more. And I think this will help in their overall holistic development as well.
And then again, just going back to that, the pressure, don't let them feel the pressure. You, as a parent, you know your child and your child's capabilities.
Yeah.
Don't push them to the point that that will just set them up to fail.
True.
To the point that, you know, the pressure leads to frustration and anxiety that we spoke about, and stress, to the point that they just shut down. They don't talk anymore. They don't engage. Their academics are you know, are affected. I think it's about knowing your child.
Yeah. So that's,
and
let's say in one term, it's mindful parenting.
Mindful parenting. Yeah, let's call it mindful. Knowing your child, and, you know, remember to take in the bottom up approach rather than the top down approach.
I think that's a very good way to end this, and we even started by saying that. We hope that you liked the discussion today, and we hope that this will be beneficial to all of you, and that you start looking at your children from a different perspective. And it should be to help them overcome the issues that they have in terms of their learning. So saying that, we wish you all the best with this, and see you again in Clarity Chats. And Alpa, thank you so much for coming, and thanks for your time. It was a pleasure having you here. And until next time, thank you.